When thinking about characters in Jujutsu Kaisen who embody the idea of destructive power, there are always two who come to mind: the disaster spirit of the earth and the living volcano Jogo, and the culling game player with the highest cursed energy output of anyone in the colonies, Ishigori Ryu. If these two characters were to ever meet on the field of battle, who would win? That's what we're here today to figure out. But before we get into that, as always, if you haven't already, definitely be sure to like and subscribe. I'd like to try and hit at least 100 likes on today's review. Now then, without any further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? We have right here the list of stats that I'm going to be comparing these two characters based off of. Could have done some more, but I figured these are the ones of greatest relevance and importance. I also decided to keep it at an odd number so that we will have a clear winner because they will have a majority advantage. So, getting started off with technique. Jogo's disaster flames at their most basic level are, well, flames, and rather powerful flames at that, capable of reducing a grade 1 sorcerer to ashes, burning them to a crisp with just one moment's contact. This did not immediately kill any of the grade 1 level sorcerers he touched, but did severe enough damage to take them out of the fight immediately. Beyond just that, Jogo also has his Ember Insects, which are able to cause delayed explosions after making contact with a target and producing a very loud, screeching sound. And there's also his Remote Volcanoes, which he seems to be able to summon from anywhere without having to make contact. There is then his maximum technique, Maximum Meteor. It's a meteor. It can level a city block, at least, though it does seem to be rather slow for a meteor. That aside, its destructive power is not to be questioned. It would hurt even 15-finger Sukuna if it hit. On the other end, we have Ryu and his Granite Blast. It is a giant cursed energy beam of seemingly concussive force with some degree of burning capabilities to it, but for the most part, it is just a giant laser that will level everything in its path. The only real variation we ever see of Granite Blast is in the size and intensity of the blasts, and also he seemingly has the ability to split it into a number of homing beams. Obviously, I think the advantage in terms of technique here goes to Jogo. He simply just has a lot more variety in what he's capable of with his flames. Getting to cursed energy manipulation, I am including domain expansions within this because, well, I feel that they fall best under this category. Both Ryu and Jogo don't really show any super insane feats of cursed energy manipulation outside of both being capable of domain expansions, which is a fairly great feat amongst anyone in Jujutsu Kaisen, given that it is the pinnacle of Jujutsu sorcery. While Ryu never shows that he's capable of reverse curse technique, his recovery from some of his wounds after the Sendai battle may be due to him having some aptitude in it, but I'm not going to put a bunch of stock into him having it or not. Jogo, on the other hand, due to being a cursed spirit, is almost naturally able to heal himself without having to know reverse curse technique, and also, due to being a being purely made of cursed energy, has a far greater basic understanding of cursed energy manipulation than, well, almost any sorcerer can have. In addition, both of them do have domain expansions, although we don't know what Ryu's domain looked like or what its exact effects were. But Jogo learned domain amplification from Kenjaku, allowing him to nullify techniques. However, that wouldn't be very useful in a battle against Ryu, who does not use his technique for any sort of defensive purpose. It doesn't have any real defensive application. So, domain amplification isn't really going to have any sort of use in this battle. However, it is indicative of a greater understanding of cursed energy manipulation. Thus, I give it to Jogo. We're here at cursed energy output. I don't think this even needs to be a conversation, given that having insane cursed energy output is Ryu's whole gimmick. He is the guy for cursed energy output. Jogo is very impressive. He does a lot of very big, powerful, destructive attacks. However, with Ryu, that is essentially every single time he uses his technique. A normal Grenade Blast seems to be capable of leveling whole swaths of Sendai, which is the sort of feat Jogo is only capable of when using his maximum technique. Oh yeah, and it should also be mentioned that Ryu is able to beat Yuta with a fully manifested Rika in a battle of cursed energy output. If that doesn't put you over almost everyone else in the game, I don't know what does. It kind of goes without saying that Ryu gets the advantage when it comes to cursed energy output. Coming to strength, I think this one is fairly obvious as well. While Jogo is not overtly physically weak, having immense physical strength is not really his gimmick. And while it's not Ryu's gimmick either, his cursed energy output being put into his cursed energy reinforcement means that his physical strikes are just insanely powerful. He was able to overwhelm Yuta in hand-to-hand combat, and he was able to trade blows with Rika, who is one of the most powerful cursed spirits, or I guess now Shikigami in the entire series. So I think it kind of goes without saying that Ryu takes the advantage here in strength as well. On the other side of the spectrum here, we have speed, and now the conversation shifts back into Jogo's favor. I don't really think it's much of a question here. Ryu isn't a slow character. Well, not physically anyway. But speed isn't really his whole deal. Jogo, on the other hand, is partially defined by being a very fast character. Much of what we see him doing is him zipping around the battlefield. One of his most prominent showcasings as being very fast was when he speed blitzed the Zenin team after their battle with Dagon. Now, you can argue that they were all very exhausted and that their reaction speeds were slowed due to their exhaustion. However, I do not think that undermines the fact that, in their eyes, the man was effectively teleporting. You could also make the argument that Jogo did not get speed blitzed by 15-finger Sukuna like Ryu did, who wasn't even really able to react to what Sukuna was doing. And while I think there is a conversation to be had there about that, and at the most basic level, that does seem to be a great testament to Jogo's speed, I think the situations for both of their encounters with 15-finger Sukuna were quite different. Sukuna was effectively playing around with Jogo for most of their fight and didn't go out of his way to kill Jogo, whereas with Ryu, after the first slash was delivered, he decided he was going to go all out. If Sukuna decided to do the same thing against Jogo from the get-go, I don't think the results would have been that different. However, I still think the advantage in speed goes to Jogo. The pendulum swings once again to another extreme as we get to durability. Jogo isn't a glass cannon per se. We see him taking quite a beating in his fights with Gojo and his fight with Sukuna. However, he does get pretty messed up in both of those fights. He kind of gets thrown into a meat grinder for both of them. Ryu, on the other hand, is able to have a prolonged fight with Yuta, with Rika, as well as tanking his own Grenade blasts being thrown back at him from Uro. I think, it kind of goes without saying that Ryu takes the advantage in terms of durability. I don't think Jogo is necessarily fragile, but given that he would not survive the Black Flash Rush and the Playful Cloud Strike from Yuji and Todo, while Ryu was able to survive trading blows with Yuta and Rika and survive his own Grenade Blasts, yeah, the man is clearly winning in terms of durability. And then we arrive here at the most interesting of stats to decide who gets the ultimate advantage, Battle IQ. I don't think either of these two are particularly strategic fighters. It's not really their gimmick. However, Ryu seems to overindulge in battle and values his own fulfillment and fun over making good decisions. The finest example of this being when he decided to go pick a fight with Sukuna, despite being able to see how strong he was. Jogo, on the other hand, has shown that he is capable of sneaky tactics with his usage of his remote volcanoes. He showed he was very capable of teamwork and strategic fighting in the Shibuya battle against Gojo, and he was actively reserving his domain expansion in his fight with Sukuna because he didn't feel there was any need to use up so much of his cursed energy on what would ultimately be a pointless endeavor. In this case, I think the advantage goes to Jogo, and as a result, the ultimate advantage goes to Jogo as well. A battle between these two would be quite the spectacle, with them creating massive explosions and just leveling entire swaths of whatever area they're fighting in. A lot of it would be Jogo dashing around and trying to land hits on Ryu, largely succeeding, but many of those attacks would not have much of an effect on Ryu. Jogo, on the other hand, would be very busy with and worried about dodging Ryu's Grenade Blasts, as while I don't think they would one-shot Jogo, I do think they would do a very serious amount of damage to him, probably enough damage to push the fight greatly into Ryu's favor. I don't think Jogo would have to worry too much about the tracking Grenade Blasts, because Yuta was able to outrun them, and while Yuta is by no means slow, I am very confident that Jogo, most of the time, is faster than Yuta, so he wouldn't really have much of a problem dealing with those. The battle would probably go to a domain expansion clash, and while we don't know what the exact abilities or appearance of Ryu's domain are, we do understand the general benefits of having a domain expansion. They would cancel out each other's sure hit effects, and they would both get physical boosts to their abilities. I don't know if the battle would go on long enough, or if they would land solid enough hits on each other for the domains to break, and for one of them to still be alive by the end of it. If they were both alive, I do think that Ryu's ability to still output a beam like Grenade Blast, even when his technique is on cooldown, would possibly allow him to win the fight. And I do think a continued battle after a domain clash would be Ryu's path to victory. I don't think it would last that long. I think after a certain point, the amount of damage that Ryu would be taking from Jogo's attacks, especially when when Jogo is being buffed by his domain expansion, I think that would probably be enough to do him in. And thus, I believe that the winner of this hypothetical battle is the Disaster Spirit Jogo. What do you guys think? I'm sure some of you have your own criteria and your own perspectives on these things. Be sure to share your thoughts down in the comments. I'm sure that power scaling debates would never get toxic, so I don't even need to tell you guys to keep it civil. But yeah, that's all for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be doing these every once in a while. This was originally supposed to come out when we were on break, but I had other stuff going on. And then, I didn't feel like doing a review this week, so I just did this instead. If you enjoyed discussing Jujutsu Kaisen with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce in this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.